It was a day like no other. The kind of day that was meant for a celebration where hearts were full and dreams were realized. Dr. Evelyn Harris, a seasoned nurse and single mother, stood outside the Grand Medical School, her breath taken away by the sight before her. The tall columns of the building seemed to stretch toward the sky, gleaming with the promise of achievement and years of hard work. Today, her son, Aaron, was graduating from medical school, a momentous occasion that symbolized not just a success, but her sacrifices as well. Evelyn had dedicated her life to the medical field, spending countless hours at the hospital, putting others' needs before her own. As a nurse, she had seen the depths of human suffering and the fragility of life, but she had always fought through it all. Each day, she had walked into the hospital with the same determination to heal and to care. But it hadn't been easy. She had spent long nights away from her son, missing birthdays, holidays, and precious moments. There were times when she wondered if the pain, the exhaustion, and the loneliness would ever feel worth it. And yet here she stood, on the cusp of the day she had waited for her entire life. Today, Aaron was about to achieve something she had always dreamed of for him, becoming a doctor. As she stood at the gates, watching the students and their families, Evelyn couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. She had raised Aaron alone, and every sacrifice she had made had been worth it. She had taught him to be resilient, to never give up, no matter the obstacles that life threw at him. She had always been his greatest supporter, and today he was about to stand on that stage as a graduate. It was a bittersweet moment for her, pride mixed with the ache of knowing her little boy was no longer a child. The auditorium was filled with laughter and chatter, the excitement palpable as families took their seats. The room buzzed with energy, the walls echoing with the hopes and dreams of countless young graduates. Evelyn's seat was front and center, reserved just for her. As she took her place, her eyes scanned the room, her heart swelling with emotion. She could see Aaron dressed in his cap and gown, standing with his fellow graduates, his eyes bright with excitement. She had always known he would make it here. She had never doubted him. But as she sat there, soaking in the moment, she noticed something strange. The guards at the entrance, dressed in their dark suits, were staring at her. Their eyes locked on hers with an intensity that made her uneasy. She brushed it off at first, thinking it was just her nerves. But as the ceremony began, she noticed their gaze never wavered. The speeches began, the applause rang out. And yet the guard's attention remained focused on Evelyn. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat, trying to ignore the feeling gnawing at her. Then, as the dean called for the next round of graduates to take the stage, one of the guards approached her. "Ma'am," the guard said, his voice calm but firm, "we need you to leave." Evelyn blinked, startled by the unexpected request. "What do you mean?" she asked, confusion flooding her thoughts. "This is my son's graduation. I can't leave now." The guard's expression remained stoic, unyielding. He gestured to the door, his eyes never leaving hers. "We've been instructed. Please, ma'am, you must leave." Evelyn's mind raced as disbelief took over. Why would they ask her to leave now at a moment like this? She looked around, hoping to see anyone who could explain this strange request, but the room had grown suddenly quiet. The applause had died down, and all eyes seemed to be on her. A cold chill ran through her as she stood up, her legs unsteady. The joy of the moment had evaporated, replaced by a rising sense of dread. She tried to speak, but her voice caught in her throat. "Why?" She finally managed to ask, her voice shaky. "Why do I need to leave?" But before the guards could respond, a sudden movement caught her eye. The door at the back of the auditorium swung open, and in walked four figures. They were dressed in black uniforms, their presence commanding immediate attention. The crowd fell into a hushed silence as the four men walked with a purposeful stride toward the front of the room. Evelyn's heart raced as they moved past the guards, their eyes scanning the room with cold precision. The men, she realized, were SEALs, their uniforms unmistakable. The leader of the SEALs, a tall man with a steely gaze, made his way toward the guards. Without a word, he exchanged a brief conversation with them. Evelyn couldn't hear what was said, but she could see the tension in the guards' posture. They stood a little straighter, their once confident demeanor now wavering. The SEALs moved with quiet efficiency, and before long, the leader turned to Evelyn. His eyes softened, a trace of understanding in them. "You're the mother of Aaron Harris, correct?" he asked, his voice strong but kind. Evelyn nodded, taken aback by the question. "Yes, I am. But what's going on here? Why are they asking me to leave?" The SEAL's face hardened as he gestured toward the guards. "These men," he said, his voice steady, "have no authority to ask you to leave. We're here to make sure you stay. No one will disturb your son's moment. You've earned the right to be here, and no one is going to take that from you." Evelyn blinked in disbelief, trying to process what was happening. The SEALs had positioned themselves in front of her, their powerful presence filling the room. The guards, realizing they had no power in this situation, turned and left without another word. Evelyn's eyes, still wide with shock, met Aaron's on stage. The moment their gazes locked, a smile spread across Aaron's face. She could see the relief in his eyes as he realized that she was still there. The moment felt surreal, as though time had momentarily paused. He was standing on the stage, about to receive his degree, and she was here to witness it. In that instant, everything came full circle. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every challenge they had faced together had led to this very moment. She had been there through it all, and nothing could take that away from her. The room erupted into applause once more, but Evelyn's focus remained on Aaron. The SEALs, now standing silently in the background, had ensured that nothing could spoil the moment. The guards had been silenced, and Evelyn's place at her son's side was secured. It was a victory, not just for Aaron, but for Evelyn, who had fought for this day her whole life. The ceremony was in full swing now, and the once muted sounds of celebration filled the room. Laughter, applause, and cheers rang out in every corner of the auditorium as more graduates took the stage, one by one to receive their hard-earned diplomas. But for Evelyn, the weight of the moment hadn't quite lifted. The events of the past few minutes, those first terrifying moments when the guards had approached her, demanding she leave, followed by the sudden intervention of the SEALs, still felt surreal. She remained seated, her hands shaking slightly, but her heart was filled with pride for her son and gratitude for the unexpected intervention of the SEALs. She couldn't tear her gaze away from Aaron. He stood on the stage, his back straight, his eyes sparkling with joy as he accepted his degree. The crowd cheered for him, and his smile grew wider with every round of applause. Aaron had always been determined, always had that fire inside him to achieve greatness. But Evelyn knew what the world didn't. She knew that behind his success lay years of struggle, of late-night study sessions, of personal sacrifices. As a single mother, she had pushed him to aim high, to believe in himself, even when the world around them seemed to close in on them. Aaron was no longer the boy she had raised with every ounce of love and strength she could muster. He was a man, standing tall, confident, and ready to take on the world. It was a bittersweet realization that, as a mother, she had been prepared for this day. She knew it was coming, but it didn't make it any easier to watch her son step into the future. The applause eventually settled into a lull as the ceremony moved toward its final stage. Aaron had already received his degree and was now sitting among the other graduates, eagerly waiting for the final speeches and acknowledgments. His eyes once again found hers, and in that brief moment of connection, Evelyn saw the pride in his eyes. He knew what this day meant to her, just as she knew what it meant to him. But as the last graduate took their diploma, and the ceremony neared its conclusion, the SEALs stood up, moving with the same quiet efficiency they had shown earlier. Their leader, the man who had spoken to Evelyn and ensured she stayed at her seat, caught her eye once again. He gave her a small nod, signaling that everything was in place. Before Evelyn could even gather her thoughts to approach him, he was already making his way toward her. He moved with purpose, cutting through the crowd effortlessly. When he reached her, he paused, standing tall in front of her. "I hope you're doing okay," he said, his voice calm yet warm. It's important to us that you had the opportunity to witness this day. Evelyn blinked, overwhelmed with emotion. She had always been strong, the one who held everything together. But now, in the face of these powerful figures, she was at a loss for words. Thank you. She finally managed, her voice thick with gratitude. I? I don't know what to say. I never imagined something like this could happen today. You've done something incredible. The seal's expression softened. It's our job, he said, simply, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. No one should ever be denied the chance to see their loved one achieve something like this. Evelyn nodded, her heart swelling with appreciation. But there was more to it than that. The seals had not only stood guard, making sure that she could witness Erin's greatest achievement, but they had shown her something deeper, a sense of duty to protect the unseen heroes. They were here not for the glory, not for the recognition, but for the simple but powerful reason that they believed in what was right. They believed in protecting the people who fought quietly in the background like Evelyn and gave everything for their loved ones. Why? Evelyn asked suddenly, her voice quivering. Why did you do this? Why would you stand up for me? For us, the SEAL leader's eyes flickered for a moment, as though considering the question carefully. Because we've seen a lot in our time, we know what it means to make sacrifices to stand by those you love, even when the world doesn't see it. Your sacrifice as a mother, as a nurse, was not lost on us. No one should ever feel like their place is not important. Evelyn's throat tightened. She had never considered herself a hero, never thought of herself as anything more than a mother doing her best to provide for her son. But hearing these words, spoken by a man who had seen the worst of the world, made her feel as though her struggles mattered. She had spent so many years thinking that the quiet moments, the ones spent late at night after Erin had gone to bed, or the hours spent nursing patients, pouring her heart and soul into her work, were insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Yet here in this room, surrounded by strangers who understood her sacrifice, it suddenly felt as though those moments mattered. The SEAL leader gave her a reassuring smile, then turned to look toward the stage, where Erin stood once more, now talking with his fellow graduates. He'll do well, the leader said, his voice filled with certainty. You've raised a fine son. Evelyn's eyes followed Erin, watching as he laughed and joked with his friends, completely unaware of the events that had just transpired. A sense of calm washed over her as she realized just how much he had grown. This was not the boy who had clung to her for comfort when he was sick. This was not the young man who had struggled through his studies, doubting himself at times. This was someone new, someone who was ready to make a difference in the world. And then it hit her. This moment was more than just about Erin. This was about her as well. It wasn't just her sacrifices that had brought her to this point. It was her belief that the love and support she gave would make all the difference. And now, that belief had borne fruit. She had done her part, and Erin had done his. Her chest swelled with pride as the ceremony finally came to a close. The graduates were released, their families rushing to meet them. Evelyn stood up, her legs still feeling weak from the emotional roller coaster of the day, but her heart was strong. As she made her way toward the stage, the SEALs moved aside, allowing her to pass. The leader nodded once more, his way of acknowledging the bond that had been created in those few fleeting moments. When Evelyn reached the stage, Erin turned to face her, his eyes searching for hers. The world seemed to slow as their gazes met. He stepped forward, his arms opening wide as if to embrace her. "Mom," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you made it. You're here." Evelyn's eyes welled with tears, and without a word, she wrapped her arms around her son, holding him tight. There were no words that could capture the depth of her love for him, but in that embrace, all of the years of struggle, sacrifice, and hope were conveyed. "I wouldn't have missed this for the world," she whispered, her voice breaking. The crowd around them erupted into applause once again, but for Evelyn and Erin, the applause no longer mattered. They had everything they needed right there in that moment, the strength of their love, the triumph of perseverance, and the knowledge that they had each other no matter what the future held. The SEALs, still standing in the background, watched silently. They had done their duty, ensured that this moment would happen, and now it was time for them to leave unnoticed as they had entered. They understood what it meant to protect the unseen heroes, to ensure that the sacrifices of others were never forgotten. As they disappeared into the crowd, Evelyn and Aaron stood there, side by side, ready to face the world together. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they would face it with courage, strength, and love, just as they always had. And for Evelyn, that was enough. The room had been silenced once today, but now it was filled with the sound of a mother's pride, a son's joy, and the unbreakable bond between them. It was a victory not just for Aaron, but for every unseen hero who fought quietly in the background, every sacrifice that had been made, and every story that was yet to be told. If you enjoyed this heartwarming tale of sacrifice, courage, and the power of unseen heroes, don't miss out on more incredible stories. Stay tuned for more powerful narratives that will inspire and move you. Subscribe to expect stories for more gripping content, and join us on this journey of unforgettable moments.